You know, the game in our kind of life is being able to recognize a good idea when you rarely get it, and or when it rarely is presented to you. And I think that's something you have to prepare for over a long period. What is the old saying? That opportunity comes to the prepared mind. And I don't think you can teach people in 2 minutes how to have a prepared mind. But that's the game.
Things we learned 40 years ago, though, will help and recognize the next big idea.
And on opportunity cost, going back to that, the current freshman economics text, which is sweeping the country, has right in practically the first page, and it says all intelligent people should think primarily in terms of opportunity cost. And that's obviously correct. But it's very hard to teach business based on opportunity cost. It's much easier to teach the capital assets pricing model, where you can just punch in numbers and out come numbers. And therefore, people teach what is easy to teach instead of what is correct to teach. It reminds me of Einstein's famous saying. He says, everything should be made as simple as possible, but no more simple.
But you got to remember that in our way of thinking, all intelligent investment is value investment. Because why would you want to buy something which wasn't worth as much as you were paying for it? And who wouldn't like buying something for less than it's worth? So the only difference when people talk about value investor, you're always a value investor. Now, there are various ways to look for value investments, just as there are various places to fish. And if the first rule of fishing is to fish where the fish are, the first rule of value investing is to find some place to fish for value investments where there are a lot of them. And, of course, it's gotten hard in the United States to find easy value investments because the world is so competitive. And that accounts for a lot of what you see in Berkshire, where we buy securities like Apple that we wouldn't have bought in the old days when we had more mundane things that were serving us very well. So we're just looking in different places, but we're value investors.
And so
some people, when they say value investor, they mean somebody that emphasizes working capital or something, meaning you should fish in that particular place. But I think that's all. I think it's a bad use of the language to think there's a difference between value investing and other good investing. All good investing is value investing, by definition. And so there are just various places to fish for value investments. And of course, as the world gets tougher, you have to fish in places you didn't fish before.
And so the idea with Apple then is that there's value there that's unrecognized by the market.
Different kind of value investing, and one with which we're less familiar. But we wouldn't have bought it if we didn't think it was a good investment.
The skill that got Berkshire through one decade would not have sufficed to get it through the next decade with the achievements made. Without Warren Buffett being a learning machine, continuous learning machine, the record would have been absolutely impossible. The same is true at lower walks of life. I constantly see people rise in life who were not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And boy, does that habit help, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. Alfred North Whitehead said at one time that the rapid advance of civilization came only when man invented the method of invention. And of course, he was referring to the huge growth in GDP per capita and all the other good things that we now take for granted, which started a few hundred years ago, and when before that, all was stasis. And so if civilization can progress only when it invents the method of invention, you can progress only when you learn the method of learning. I was very lucky. I came to law school having learned the method of learning. And nothing has served me better in my long life than continuous learning. And if you take Warren Buffett, if you watched him with a time clock, I would say half of all the time that he spends is just sitting on his ass and reading. And a big chunk of the rest of the time is spent talking one-on-one, either on the telephone or personally, with highly gifted people whom he trusts and who trust him. In other words, it looks quite academic, all this worldly success.